Hi everyone, welcome to the 5th session of this Audience Product Expert live stream. So again, thank you for being so passionate about this academy. Today I'm with Anna. Anna is one of the main experts that we have on display. So I'm glad she agreed to come today and to share her experience. Anna, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alessia. I'm really glad to be here today. I myself have spent a good share of my time at Google working with advertisers of different sizes. So whatever insights I'll be sharing with you today and strategies, they come both from my practical experience and also from the product knowledge that we have here.
Yeah, the content that we're going to see today is pretty unique. So we created actually for this session. So we're really, really happy that we can share all these insights with you today. So just as usual, last week's survey. So thanks again for filling in. Many people filled in the survey. So thanks, really. Last session, you remember, was about advanced RLSA. So it was a pretty advanced session, I would say. So feel free to go back to the presentation, to watch the video again, to talk to your account managers if something wasn't clear. I hope you enjoyed it. So we asked you, customer match bid adjustments should be higher than RLSA. The answer is true. I've seen many comments. So this is a rule that comes from the assumption that if you're using customer match, then it's because those customers that belong to the list are more valuable to you than general RLSA list, because you created the customer match list out of your clients and database of emails. So if that is true, then the customer match bid adjustment should be higher, so it can override the RLSA bid adjustment. Otherwise, again, there is no rule of thumb here. It really depends on your strategy. Then we asked you, RLSA in targeting bid can be used to expand your keywords on users already familiar with your website, and this is true. It's one of the main use of targeting bid strategy. And then we introduced to you this really new function, the if function for ads, that was released before for mobile and then for audiences. And we asked you if it's true or false that you can customize the landing pages according to different audiences using the if function. And this is false. This is not possible. So the if function allows you to modify the text of the ad, but not the landing page. So today, we are leaving search audiences aside. We're just concentrating on display strategy. So we will give you all the tools to create a display strategy for your clients. We're going to see how you can leverage your own data, so how you should start from remarketing and similar audiences, and then leverage your display strategy on Google data. We will share with you how you can structure a display strategy into your account using different kind of audiences and Google Audience Solutions. And then we're just going to introduce automation in terms of targeting and automation in terms of bidding. So I leave the presentation on to Anna. Again, Anna is one of the major experts on this topic, so I'm sure we're going to learn a lot today together.
Thank you, Alessia. So bottom line, if there are a few things that I want you to take out of today's session, is not only generally an understanding of where each display targeting fits into the sales funnel, but also some sort of a new intuition, so that whenever you are asked to put a strategy together, you actually understand what will work better for certain types of clients and what not. And hopefully you will be able to avoid common mistakes just because you generally understand how display works and what is it that makes it successful or what makes it actually fail.
And you can explain this to your clients. So again, you remember that one of the main scope of this academy is also to give you the right selling points to discuss the strategy you are implementing with your clients, with your accounts. So we think that this is going to be really interesting
and
today.
A big part of it too is setting the right expectations and the right KPIs. So we will touch upon it a little bit in the next session. Further on, we will discuss measurement in depth, but today we do need to touch upon it so that you can set the right expectations. So let's start. Let's begin. This is a very simplified vision of the funnel, right? So we know that at the bottom there is the decision, which is your ultimate goal. You want people to actually decide and buy. If you go a bit further away from it, what leads to it is a whole number of actions and of people's interests. So the person would start with being aware about your business and about your product. Eventually, they would form a certain intent to potentially buy. And then at the end, they would actually buy. right? So what you had focused on the previous sections was the decision piece of it. So when we talk about remarketing, always keep in mind that remarketing is only re-engaging the existing audience. So you are not expanding your strategy. You're simply making the most out of the investment that's already done. And always also keep in mind that remarketing is not only limited to display, but to search, which clearly you've covered very well in the previous sessions, but also to video, right? So when we speak of remarketing, we think of all networks of display, video, of search, whatever suits your business the best. But what we will go into today, actually, is what would you go after if you were looking for a new audience? And finding the new audience efficiently is a critical pillar for a business success, because this is that top of a funnel that feeds the bottom of it. Remarketing, no matter how efficient it seems from the standpoint of last click, if you were to not feed your business with any new customers and website visitors, you wouldn't have gotten the same ROI at the end of it, right? And so what we will also touch upon today a little bit is how they integrate and how they work together, and how actually using a piece of working with existing audience and another piece of the puzzle working with the new audience can reinforce the success of your whole account. So actually, let's begin. And from my personal experience, I do believe that first and foremost, you should always leverage your own data. By that, we're not talking about customer match in this particular instance, but we're talking about similar audiences. So why do we say that this is very powerful and you can leverage your own data? Like, the simplest thing how to explain it is that you control similar audiences by creating remarketing lists. So whatever remarketing list you create in Google Analytics or AdWords, eventually, if we have enough data, we will form a similar audience list for you. What it means is that if you have a segment of people who bought, we will create a segment that's similar to the people who bought from your website. If you have a list of people who are plain interested, maybe visited your website and spend some time on it, we can also create a similar audience to that. And then a couple of other interesting segments like smart lists in Google Analytics, which is also a remarketing list. It's your best audience of the website. We can create a similar audience to that as well. So let's actually open up with a case study. I think it illustrates the case very well. So Lowe's were pursuing, they actually started like a typical advertiser that I meet on a day-to-day basis starts. They would do search and then they would do remarketing. And they were, of course, very happy with the remarketing ROI because this is return in visitors, so they would convert pretty quickly. But in essence, they came to a point where they needed to expand their audience. So they launched a similar audiences campaign, and what they did very correctly in this case, they analyzed the synergies between similar audiences and remarketing at the end of the campaign trial period, right? When we talk about analyzing the synergies, this is as simple as measure how successful your account was before you launched the strategy. Measure how it was after you launched the strategy. But when you do that, don't simply look at the outcome of remarketing separately and similar audiences separately, but look at how altogether, what was the uplift of conversions in the account and what was the change in CPA. Because I hope that you do understand that the CPAs will be different. So let's say the remarketing one will probably be the lowest in the account. The similar audiences one will be probably on the level of your generic search. However, due to the synergy of these two instruments, at the end of this campaign period, Lowe's hotels actually got a 10% lower CPA on the account level.
Yeah, I think this is a really good example because first, it's a real case, so it's a real client. And second, it just makes us start to think about a display strategy more than single pieces of display solutions just put together, right? So you have to think about remarketing together with similar audiences and together with a wider display strategy and analyze it as a whole, not just looking at the CPA of similar audiences versus remarketing. That is not going to give you the real insights that you need.
Right. So. Yeah, exactly. So moving on, here is where I would like to make sure that you develop this intuition into how do you control your success when you start using similar audiences as your first step in expanding up the funnel with display. So first of all, the similar audience will have a bit of a different outcome when you use it, depending on which remarketing list it starts from, right? So your similar audiences to all visitors will give a different result from the similar audience to all converters. So if we were to show it on the funnel, the similar to all visitors would be this big, broad audience that would give you actually high reach. And the reach on a similar audience to converters would be lower. However, if we look at the cost per acquisition, the similar audience to all converters would actually give you cheaper conversions, whereas similar audience to all visitors would give you more expensive conversions. So altogether, even though we would put similar audiences somewhere on the intent part of the funnel, so very close to decision, you should also understand for yourself that different types of similar audiences will give you different results. And here for a full picture, I also placed the orange bar, which is the remarketing CPA. So by all means, your remarketing CPA is the lowest across the account. Your search CPA is a bit higher, and then the similar to converters would be somewhere on the level with that generic search. And then, of course, the similar to all visitors would probably have the higher last click CPA. And finally, I left a little note at the bottom of the screen, like a small tip for you guys. If you have not yet used smart lists from Google Analytics, do try them in your remarketing campaigns and verify that the outcome is usually very good. And the same touches on the similar audiences to smart lists. Usually they bring results very similar to similar audiences to all converters, right? So this is the best audience, therefore it will convert the quickest.
Super easy to create.
Right, super, one click. And finally, to bring it all together and move on, things to do. So first of all, think of a similar audience strategy. When you launch it, do think of, first of all, dedicating a separate budget for it, putting it in a separate campaign, and within the campaign, when you create ad groups, create them according to the lists, right? So if you have a similar audience to all visitors, that's one ad group. Similar audience to all converters is another ad group, right? This is sort of for your control and understanding that their result is very different. However, of course, if you're using automated bidding and you don't really care where that conversion comes from, you just care about the final CPA, it's okay to put them in one ad group, but I do still encourage you to keep it in a separate campaign. Creatives, consider that it's a new audience, so you can test your remarketing creatives as well. Remarketing creatives, I would assume, usually have very strong call to action, right? At the same time, if it's a broader similar audience, then consider using your general brand creatives, right? So the ones that strongly represent the value of your brand. And then finally, in terms of tracking and bidding, so if you're after performance, if you're actually after conversions and conversion costs, right, lower conversion costs, always use automated instruments with our automated audiences. So anything starting from enhanced CPC and then target CPA and so on and so forth are usually the better ways to bid when you're using similar audiences. And in terms of tracking, you can do the standard thing, which is track last click conversions, but always do mind that considering that we're going up the funnel, it's of very high value to look at the micro conversions as well. Whether you bid on them in AdWords or you don't bid, but it's worth tracking them because more often than not, any mid and upper funnel display targeting will be bringing you a lot of engaged visitors, which you will then convert later down the funnel.
We'll go a lot into this in next session, which is dedicated to measurement.
Absolutely. And then as for things to avoid, so don't expect that your CPA will be the same as remarketing.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, remarketing is unique because, again, this is just a very special type of an audience who is already familiar with your website, who will buy very soon. So don't pin your expectations to remarketing. Pin your expectations rather to search, to generic search. And then finally, as for the landing page, so if you do create a creative that is pretty specific, then make sure that the landing page where this creative sends your audience corresponds to what you had been selling to them. Because if you bring them somewhere that's far away from the good that you've advertised in the creative, it's possible that they will bounce simply because they didn't come to the place that they expected to come to. That was step one.
We'll all be alive at the end of the session.
So any questions that you have, please do put them into the comment section. So I will be absolutely happy to answer them. Anything that we can't cover in the video, we will simply address through questions. And the next step would be leverage Google audiences. So this is something that you're probably very familiar with from the previous sessions, and I cannot reinforce how interesting this report actually is. So first of all, the Audience Insights report is the analysis of your remarketing list. Again, we pin it all back to remarketing, right? Look into this Audience Insights report for your remarketing list for all converters and remarketing list of all visitors, because you will see that the characteristics of the audience inside those lists usually is pretty different. Sometimes similar, but most of the time there is at least one category that's very different. So what do we derive from here? First of all, it points us to which similar audience is based on this list, right? So this can be your starting point into expansion. The second one, and here again, there is a logical sequence to this. We are moving up the funnel. So remarketing gave us the cheapest CPA. When we're expanding, our next logical step would be similar audiences. And a parallel logical step is in-market audiences, because in-market audiences, usually we would expect the same conversion value and the same volume of conversions. It's a pretty very well converting audience.
Remember in the first and second sessions, we went through all the Google solutions, audience solutions available. We explained you how the algorithms are working to creating those. And we kind of shifted from audience being remarketing to audience being also new clients acquisition. And in this fifth session, we're just getting there.
Yeah, targeting the acquisition. Then another step even further up the funnel with the higher reach, but this is where you should really be measuring micro conversions. That's affinity audiences. And finally, the highest step is demographics, where you are not actually even going after people's intent. You're simply going after their demographic characteristics. But this is the one that we will not touch upon today, because there are targetings that bring quicker results in terms of ROI. So just a very quick recap. In market audiences, how they're peculiar is that here, that's the segment of people who are actually in the market right now, researching to buy the product. So when you're picking a category from in-market audiences, like shoes, it's the simplest, always the simplest example. When you're picking a category of shoes, it means that the person actually right now is actively researching to buy shoes. And when we say that it's updated real time, what it means is that the moment they've bought it, we have detected that signal and we remove this audience from this segment, right? So you're not targeting people who are not interested anymore. So there are two things to remember to ensure success within market audiences. Because again, by default, if you simply select any category, you go after it with a big budget, it doesn't mean you'll be successful. To be successful, first of all, you have to either pick the category that is directly related to your product. So for example, if you are selling shirts and you think that someone who's buying shoes will be interested in shirts, that's a good idea. However, very likely you won't get quick results. You'll have to wait for a long time before someone actually gets hooked and goes and buys a shirt. So best if you're selling shoes, pick a category for shoes. But we know that there's not always the category to correspond to every product, right? So another way is if you are choosing a category that's not directly related to your product, go in there with a very good promotion that will hook those people who are in the category. And here's, I think the easiest way to explain is to actually give an example, a practical life example. So one of the clients that I worked with for a while was a utilities company. So a company that you sign a contract with for, say, water supply, right, into your apartment. And this company was facing quite strong competition. So everyone was pretty much bidding on the same words for the same audiences. So they were looking for new ways to actually convert customers, to get customers to sign contracts with them. What they discovered in the Audience Insights report is that their top affinity, and in market was also related to it, is travel. So people who had been previously signing contracts with them were in the travel category. However, utilities have nothing to do with travel. So if you target a travel category and you say utilities company, no one will react to those ads. And maybe if they do, very likely they will bounce off the website. So what they did instead, they partnered with the flights company. So they actually signed a contract for flight miles, and then they promoted that through ads. So what it translates into is that they targeted the travel segment, and in their ads, they said, sign a contract with us, and in exchange, you'll get 1,000 flight miles. Now, that campaign was one of the most successful in their account. And even though they didn't adhere to the first rule that I brought to you here today, but this is just something that you understand. If you actually come with a very strong message that is very relevant to the audience, then you will be successful even if you're picking the audience that doesn't exactly represent the goods that you're selling.
Yeah, this is an amazing example on how you can really think strategically, starting from the audience insights report and going further into expanding to new audiences with a really strategic way of thinking and new ideas of partnerships and so on.
Yes.
So yeah, thanks for sharing. I think it's really interesting.
Not a problem at all. Because indeed, from my experience, I know that display will work for everyone. But the key here is set it up correctly. But even more importantly, pick your right audience and come to that audience with the right message. So here is another example. Because now, then, as a next step, I will introduce you to even a step up the funnel. I brought an example of Ford here because we all understand that cars have a long purchase cycle. So you can't possibly be measuring less click conversions in every advertising type when you're advertising cars. You have to realistically understand that there are targetings that will bring you that audience that will potentially be interested. And then if you maintain the interest of that audience and kind of catch them at the moment when they actually start showing an intent to buy, then you will get the last click conversion sort of at that intent stage, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't do upper funnel advertising, because in the end, people have to know about you before they come to that stage when they're buying, right? So what Ford did, they actually had a full funnel strategy. They worked with affinity audiences, which is on the top, in market, and then finally converted people with dynamic remarketing and search campaigns. So all of that across the funnel brought a lot of new visitors to them, eventually a lot of new leads, profits, clearly. What was also important here is that when they were at the top of the funnel, they weren't measuring less click conversions, but they were measuring the quality of the website visit of the person who comes from the campaign. And so realistically, their affinity audiences brought the most of new visitors, and those visitors were actually, they didn't bounce, they actually stayed. And then as a next stage, they collected those audiences into a remarketing list and then converted them at the bottom of the funnel. You can read more about it. We will actually link the case studies at the end of the presentation, so you can read about it in detail yourselves. So now that we've said that affinity audiences, in a sense, are pretty straightforward, you see categories. The categories are quite detailed. So again, drawing on the example of auto, there's even categories for car types, right? So someone who's really interested in a specific car type. However, we also have a big segment of advertisers which are not covered with either affinity or in market, because the product that you're offering is such a niche product that we don't have a standard category for it.
So if you go into the list of categorizations for in market or affinity, you wouldn't find what you're looking for or what's most suitable for your kind of business. But we have a solution to that.
Two. One of them we actually covered a bit earlier, right? You can actually just use similar audiences, because that will be the most adjusted to specifically your business, right? So use similar audiences. Or you can do a custom affinity audience. You can create a custom affinity audience. And I'm personally quite a big fan of them. First of all, because it allows you all of the flexibility to create the audience that you need. But then secondly, as you're creating the audience, it actually gives you insights about other things where it's worth to target because those people might be there, like topics. So again, I have my own account. It's a $1 account where I invest $1 into every targeting type in a separate campaign, and then I measure results. And so with me, something as broad as topics targeting is actually quite successful, but because the topics that I selected, I picked from the custom affinity. So when I was evaluating that audience, I looked at, hey, which websites do they usually read? And then I targeted that. So here, the best way to show it is actually, let us just walk you step by step in this particular case, and I'll give a couple of comments as we do so.
Yeah, we recorded the screen. So like last session, we already apologized, that this is a tricky part because we will have to, at the end of this, leave the presentation and come back. So we're not going to fly through this slide again. I'm going to play the video so we can see how we can actually create custom affinity audiences in your account. And an important thing, you can switch to high definition in the video settings, so you will have a clearer view of the screen. So there you go.
Great. So again, I would advise to create a separate ad group for it. If you are using any other affinity segment in that campaign, just sort of split it out so that it's easier for you to see the result. So we're creating a custom affinity ad group. We're placing a bid that's high enough to get quality traffic. So in this case, €2 we've decided, right? We're going into interest categories. We're selecting interests and remarketing. And from the drop-down menu, we then select custom affinity audiences. Now, there's actually two ways how you can create a custom affinity audience. The first one is keywords, and the other one is URLs. What we're doing here is we're doing it by keywords. So the example that we're using here is shoes for marathon runners. So we do have a category for generally sports enthusiasts and sports clothing. However, perhaps you sell this niche product of like specifically shoes for marathon runners. Therefore, we foresee what those people might be looking for in the internet. So someone who's preparing for a marathon is, first of all, researching clothing and shoes, right? Secondly, they're researching techniques. They're researching nutrition. So here with keywords, we foresee and we specify like nutrition to run a marathon and so on and so forth. And then here you see that these are the top website topics that those visitors usually read on the internet looking for that information. So that's something that you can use if you decide to go into topics targeting. And then as for URLs, so this was one strategy was to specify the audience with keywords. Another strategy is to specify it with URLs. So perhaps you know of websites where that audience usually either interacts, like marathon runners exchange information, or perhaps these are other sellers of specialized clothing for marathon runners. So if you use URLs, you can create a custom audience as well. And what we will do is we'll gather cookies of audiences typically on these websites. We will analyze what they have in common and then create the strongest audience out of all of that. So try it out, and the same rules apply as previously. Go with a strong creative and think before you do. So for example, you can mix URLs and keywords, but again, if it were me, I would probably do it in separate ad groups just to test which strategy works the best for the particular client. Now, I think this is the best part. It's really original, really. We created this kind of structure just for this session. So please pay attention. So what I would say before I begin here is that display really is simple if you understand a few key things. And actually display is also programmatic, which means, first of all, since display is a programmatic solution by Google, it means that we analyze millions, if not billions, of signals in a given moment to yield an impression on a website to your audience, right? So literally in the blink of an eye, we will have analyzed 70 million signals. What it means is that the more you rely on automation, the more successful you are. And this is not a joke, but from my experience, the more you try to control with everything, the harder your job will be and the less successful you will actually be in the end.
Also, right? Because you will have to focus on strategies and measurement together, just like micromanaging a lot of things, starting from bids to go to targeting and so on. So a lot of things to control for just one campaign. Imagine it from account or like an MCC. So yeah, automation is key to success. And we're going to cover these in the next session.
Exactly. And so where we as a company are going is to free up as much of your time to rather strategically think of what you're doing, what your strategy is, which message you're bringing to the audience, and then spend as little time as possible on daily things like managing bids or creating ads, different types of ads, right? So let's walk through this little by little. So again, this is pretty clear that on the display network, because we have about 2 million partners across the globe, millions and billions of impressions are available. Depending on the country, it will be ranging from 10 million to 1 billion on a given day. Add on top of that there's over 1,000 variations of different ads on the given day, right? It's not the typical 12 sizes of banner ads that we're used to thinking about because it's in the help center, but it's actually 1,000 different variations. And every partner of ours, every website who allows Google's ads to be placed on them will have their own, requirements or preferences. So some may actually want a 250 by 250 banner, whereas others may want a bigger one. And so literally manually, it's very hard to foresee what exactly is the best type of ad to come to the website with. That's why the first step is allow us to automate bids for you, because only real time, analyzing those 70 million signals in a blink of an eye, we will understand where you should bid more and where you should bid less, depending on what is the likelihood for you to get that conversion. So if you have your conversion tracking set up, start with enhanced CPC at least from day one. And if you actually have a big volume of conversions, you can even start with target CPA from day one. Secondly, when you're bidding, bid sufficiently. A very, very common mistake, because there is a big misconception in the market that, display is actually very cheap. So what people end up doing is they bid very low. Low as in like 2 cents, 5 cents. What happens when you do that is that you actually become ineligible to participate in competitive good auctions. So if you think of the most famous websites in your country where a lot of audience usually hangs out before they buy, you would probably be ineligible to apply to take part in auctions there if you were to bid with a 5-cent bid. The CPCs actually will never equal the bid. So even if you bid $1 or $2 or €5, 10 euros, you will never pay 10 euros for a click on the display network. You will pay somewhere in the range between 10 cents and up to €1, right? So bidding high from the start is actually better, because it will allow you to participate in those high quality auctions. It will allow you to build up your quality score quicker, because we will be able to analyze what is the click rate when you show on these impressions. And because you build up your quality score quicker, you will actually end up paying cheaper for clicks. So bid higher from the start would be my recipe for success here. And then the second part is, of course, creatives. And I do hope that all of you by now are familiar that we're migrating towards responsive ads. They're available both on any display campaign, the standard responsive ads, and there's dynamic responsive ads specifically for dynamic remarketing. And at the moment, they're placed in the ad gallery, right? So how they are unique compared to regular text ads and regular banners is that, first of all, they open access to you to native inventory. Native inventory is when your ad is shown within a website in a way that it matches the style of the website. So it's never an intrusive ad. It's always this ad that flawlessly fits with the style of the website. And therefore, these ads, because of their design, they always have higher brand recognition, and they always bring better conversions actually as well. So when you opt into responsive ads, just give us a quality image. You upload your own high quality brand image, you upload your logo, and then leave it up to us to create those thousands of ad variations. And they are indeed thousands. And as you can see, even the same text ad has 4 different variations, how it looks like here. And image ads also have different variations.
And it gives you also more chance to succeed, because if you get like a smaller spot in the auction, like this kind of ad will fit anyway. You will have an ad format ready for the spot you're getting. So
this is where machine learning works for you, because what it does is it literally even plays with your ads and adjusts them so that they are high resolution, high quality. They render with your brand content, and they bring better results because they show at the right time to the right audience. And to bring it even one step further up, so we started with covering a couple of different targeting types, right? So to just recap very, very quickly, when expanding to new audiences, start with similar audiences in market, and then potentially affinity if you need an even broader reach. And there should be a logical structure in the account as you do that. Before I actually show you the structure that I drew up here, I want to emphasize a few important settings in campaigns, no matter which campaigns they are. So again, if you will be measuring your CPAs and conversions in the end, you should communicate to our machine learning what exactly you will be measuring. So what it means that have bids with at least enhanced CPC, because to us it means, okay, enhanced CPC means that you want me to bid a bit more in the auctions where you might get a conversion. All clear. So we'll be doing that for you. But also do an ad rotation optimized for conversions, because again, that is just a very clear signal to machine learning that, listen, literally prioritize conversions when you can. Of course, don't do that in your campaigns which are targeted at brand awareness, where you won't be measuring conversions. So there you do CPM bidding, actually, pay per 1,000 clicks, and then maybe you do an ad rotation for clicks. And as for ad delivery, again, If you're after conversions, do standard, because then you give machine learning an opportunity to analyze how your audience behaves throughout the whole day, and then perhaps not bid in particular parts of the day where it doesn't bring any conversions anyway, and bid more in those parts of the day where the audience is more likely to convert. Finally, this is how my $1 account would look like. And let's just go back to the example of a seller of running shoes for marathon runners. So I would have my remarketing campaign. Let's actually look at it bottom up, right? So if I were a typical small, medium business, I would probably start with my search campaigns, and I would run some remarketing, perhaps RLSA as well. This is where I would be collecting my cheapest conversions. The one step up would be a similar audience campaign. I would by all means keep it a separate campaign from remarketing, because it's a new audience. So perhaps it requires a different message, and the expected CPA will also be different. And then, as you see, within these campaigns, I also break out different lists into different ad groups so that I can see which of those particular lists gives me better results, so that in the end I can bid more on those, and perhaps even give up those that don't give me the result that I'm expecting. And then finally, the next step is my in-market audiences. And here I picked 2 categories out of the available in-markets that are related to my runner's shoes for marathon runners. And finally, my top campaign is affinity audiences. In this particular case, I put a custom affinity in here as an ad group, but if you want, you can keep it as a separate campaign. That is completely a judgment call. It's up to you.
So your suggestion is to have one campaign for each kind of targeting. So let's say one remarketing, one in-market, and so on. And then different kind of ad groups for the different audiences.
Yes, exactly.
That's the best setup. So dedicate budget to a given type of targeting and create ad groups for different kinds of lists.
Exactly.
That targeting.
And the first time when you think about allocating your budget, you shouldn't necessarily be thinking about, oh, I'm dedicating this budget to remarketing. No, rather think of the parts of the funnel. I'm dedicating this budget to finish up the work with the audience that knows me already. Then this part I can invest into expansion, but I need results more or less quickly. And then this is the part of the budget that I can allocate to create some brand awareness, and then perhaps keep that audience and then convert them at the bottom of the funnel, right? So here, actually, if we're looking at what we would measure as success, you see that the bottom part, which is remarketing, this is where I measure the decision. Then the mid part, in market audiences and similar audiences, this is intent and consideration, right? Again, I put awareness there because similar to all visitors might be creating awareness a bit more than actual quick conversions. And then finally, if I'm creating a campaign for affinity audiences, this is my awareness part. So I set different KPIs for those parts. Since you are agency representatives, you discuss and agree on those KPIs with your clients. If they're comfortable with it, you proceed to creating such a structure. Otherwise, if they're not comfortable, they want really quick results right now, it doesn't matter. Perhaps that's not the right client to go into this display strategy yet. And so here I won't be reading through all of them, but you can then see in the materials which tentative things I would measure depending on what I'm trying to achieve at a different stage of the funnel. Great. So that concludes my part for now. Any questions that you might have, I'll be happy to answer them. So please put them in the comment section, and I'm passing on the microphone to Alessia.
Thank you. So we're just gonna introduce road to automation. We're not gonna give you many detail on this, but like we said that automating is important because it's just makes you get rid of micromanaging all stuff, bids, targeting, and so on, leaving it to machine learning so that you can focus on something else, like for example, defining your KPIs, measuring your conversions, seeing if your display strategy is working, maybe deciding to track other types of conversions and so on. And we're gonna see this in depth also in the next session. So leave it to automation to focus on more important and strategic decisions. So there are 2 ways in which to simplify, in which you can automate your display campaigns, and you can do that automating bidding and automating your targetings. So starting from automated bids, nothing new on this side. We will really encourage you to start from when you are creating your campaign from scratch, to at least start from enhanced CPC and then move on towards target CPAs and target ROAS. That would be the best thing because you leave the system bid using real-time signals during the auction itself, so really fresh data calculated during the auction, so that you can have a focus on a conversion with your target CPA or target ROAS. So you decide what's the CPA that you want to pay for a conversion, but leave everything else to the system.
And here, always keep in mind that there is a trade-off. So, for example, between target CPA and target ROAS, this is like clear, should be intuitive. The key difference is that in target CPA, you're telling us that, you know what, the volume doesn't matter as much to me, the clicks don't matter as much to me. It's just that when I get the conversions, I want to be getting them at this specific price. And again, usually it's good to start with the average account CPA and then adjust from there, right? But when it comes to target ROAS, first of all, you're selecting that strategy only if you're tracking e-commerce, and if you are ready to forego a volume of conversions in favor of the profitability of those conversions. So for some advertisers, it might be perfectly reasonable to rather find the person who will buy one expensive thing rather than 10 cheap things, right?
Yeah. So again, it's kind of a path. It's not a rule of thumb. It really depends also on the kind of customers. If they don't have e-commerce tracking with Google Analytics, for example, you cannot use target ROAS, but try at least to start this road to automation with an NCPC, with your basic conversion tracking, and then moving forward. So we will leave this slide for you so that you can go back and get a few insights. So again, why automated bidding? We've seen on average a 40% increase in return on investment when Google bids to maximize your revenue. Because again, what you're telling to the system when you're using automatic bidding is that you're really focusing on conversion. So the system will try to maximize the number of conversion, for example, using target CPA. So our predictive algorithm adapts the bids to react quickly to constantly changing markets. This is a really, really good, I think, selling point. If your clients, for example, are asking you, why are we moving towards automation? Why automated bidding is important? Why machine learning can help this kind of campaign and these performances? This would be the best answer. So the machine learning technologies uses millions of real-time, super important, this is the keyword, context and audience signals to bid in auctions that drive results. So you get rid of micromanaging all this stuff and you just focus on performance. This might look a bit strange, but actually it's super simple. So again, this is a slide that you can come back to and you can review and you can use again when you're selling to your clients your solutions. What we want to say here is that when you're using automatic bidding, when you are moving towards automation, you shouldn't be really quick. You shouldn't be in a hurry when analyzing the performances of your campaign.
Which, to be honest, to me also says that if you have a client who's incredibly impatient and will be checking on the bids every single day and might want to change them, then don't use target CPA from the start, because the moment you start using it, you do have to give it certain lags of time to do its job. And Alessa will explain how much.
So we will say at least 14 days, but again, this might change according to the purchase cycle. So let's see that you are aware that the purchase cycle length for a given kind of product is longer, so then you might need to wait longer. So we would say rule of thumb, 14 days to leave the system, analyze all the different signals, audience signal, contextual signals like time, hour of conversion, location of conversion, leave it at least for 14 days. We would say that after 2 weeks, so after 14 days, our algorithm, our mechanism will start to adjust the CPA. So don't make any change. Again, if your clients are impatient, they want to really know the results, just go backwards and use an NCPC, or maybe explain them why they have to wait, also using these kinds of wording. So 14 days, it's when our algorithm starts to adjust the CPA. So in case it's overperforming or underperforming, it will raise it or reduce it. And then it's where you can start to really analyze the performance of your campaigns. So give time to the system to adapt. Machine learning needs to learn, so it needs time to do that.
Exactly. And within these 2 weeks, again, perhaps try to keep yourself away from checking into the campaigns a couple of times a day, because first of all, a lot of reporting is done with a little bit of a delay. And then secondly, within the different days, just depending on how differently the audience behaves, what you will see is that a particular auction might be bought at a higher CPC, but it will have given you the conversion. Another auction might be bought at the lower CPC. And so in reality, the goal that machine learning is pursuing is to give you the CPA after the 2 weeks plus whatever conversion lag that you asked for, right? So 2 weeks, 1 month, more or less, this is a good time to then see, okay, did it work well? Do I need to make an adjustment, lower it, make it a bit higher? But don't make your judgment based on just 1 day.
And don't make any change in the meantime, because you will kind of disrupt this learning path. So the system needs time to learn at the same conditions. So again, really good way to explain why it's important to wait. So we said there are 2 ways to automate. One is automating biddings, and one is automating the targeting. So let's say that you are choosing to create an in-market campaign or an affinity campaign. There is a way also to automate the way you're targeting those users that you're choosing. So first, just to understand what we are talking about, where is automated targeting? You may have noticed that when you are creating your ad groups or display campaign, when you are, for example, selecting marathon runners as a custom affinity audience, just to keep on going with the same example, on the bottom, the system will let you choose if you want have a targeting optimization. So let AdWords automatically find new customers for me. And there are 2 different options: conservative targeting, which is by default enabled, you can deselect it, and aggressive targeting, which is also called display campaign optimizer. And I think you need 15 conversions per month for it to be available for you in your account. Right. So what happens when you are selecting the option of having targeting optimization, so letting Google optimize the targeting for you? Simply, you can reach people that the targeting method that we have chosen there, for example, marathon runners, wouldn't reach. So you are expanding further the reach up to new customers, but at the same cost per person. So what the system is doing, again, through machine learning, is expanding to new users that might be not part of this kind of audience, but that can convert, giving you a higher amount of conversion, so it's highly performance focused with the same cost per person.
Can I give an interesting product insight here? So what's interesting about especially aggressive optimization is that it can, in essence, fix mistakes of inexperienced account managers, because display campaign optimizer, aggressive targeting, actually learns on your website level. So it analyzes on what is the conversion, how are they performed, who performs the conversion. So in a sense, if you set up a campaign, you get some conversions, but the campaign actually isn't set up very well, the audience isn't selected very well either, and you enable aggressive targeting, you might see that the campaign will be performing better. And this is because
higher number of conversions.
Exactly, because machine learning will have picked up on the actual knowledge of the website and will have found an audience a bit differently, so that it kind of gives you the CPA that you were expecting.
So auto-targeting lets AdWords reach high potential targeting. So again, high potential. So we're focusing. It's not that we're saying, let's give AdWords the freedom to target everyone. Here we are targeting new users that, again, it's impossible for you to manually select all the potential audiences that can convert. Mm-hmm. So it's good that we leave it to machine learning, and we leave machine learning choose audiences that might be more willing to convert. So you automatically have and you're automatically reaching additional customers. So again, a few selling points, why it is important. Next to the fact that it's simple and effective, you will save time. Of course, again, you will not micromanage all the different kind of targeting. You will not spend a lot of time in testing different targetings, creating different kind of ad groups. Just choose a couple of ad groups, choose a couple of audiences, and leave auto-targeting expanding to new audiences for you. You, of course, will have the chance to explore because you are accessing new inventory of customers across all the Google Display Network. And on average, you can reach 20% more, up to 20% more customers. And at the end, you will have more conversions. Again, this is a tool that is highly focused on conversion. The first signal that we take into account to expand to the new audience is the chance of that audience to convert. If that audience doesn't have a chance to convert, the algorithm will not expand to it. So highly performance focused. So to sum up, how you can use auto-targeting and auto bidding together, and that's really important. It's the key. Always start, of course, from a good conversion tracking. You cannot use automatic bidding strategies because they are focused on conversions. If you don't have a good conversion tracking in place and a good conversion strategy in place, so if you're measuring the right conversion and those conversions are taken into account in the auctions. So first, define your conversion tracking, define your strategy. Second, always start from at least an CPC, which is the first way to automate in your manual bidding campaigns. You can have a 10% more conversions. Then you can move towards target CPA and target ROAS. The reason why we put automatic bidding before expansion to auto-target conservative or aggressive is because we need auto-bidding to be there to make auto-targeting conservative or aggressive work. Because of course, it is based on conversion. It is based on chances to convert and wants to keep the same kind of cost per conversion, per user, per person that you want. So we really, really need to have a good conversion tracking in place and target CPA and target ROAS before that.
Again, fun fact from the product side is that if you're not tracking conversions, you can still enable conservative auto-targeting, but it will simply be optimizing for reach, right? So it will be looking for an audience that you could buy at the same cost per click, for example. So
if you use it as like a performance tool, of course, conversion tracking and automatic bidding has to be there. And
rotation for conversions in the campaign settings, again, can't emphasize it enough. Everything has to be aligned, right? If your goal is conversions, make sure all of your settings are aligned with it.
Yeah, and I think this is a really, really important thing, right? So it's a really good evolution of the product also over the past years. Has display been a way to like kind of TV-like advertising to having display really, really focused on conversions as well. So
if you so want, right? If you so choose. Yep.
So we have 10 minutes for questions. So let's just recap on what we said today. We have seen like it's been a huge and long path towards like setting your display strategy. We have explained how you should always start from remarketing and then moving on to similar audiences to leverage your own data and expand to new audiences. Then moving on how you can leverage Google data, Google audiences to move on using customer affinity audiences in market. We have seen how you can structure actually your wall account in a really good and well-detailed display strategy. And then we have explained you how you can use machine learning using automation from the bid side and targeting side to stop micromanaging your campaigns and just focus on, for example, measurement or your KPIs.
Right. And combine that with the right bid and automated creatives, and then you're pretty much set up for success.
So before going to questions, just overview of what's going on in next session. We're gonna go into measurement. So why it is important to have a good measurement strategy and setup when we talk about audiences, when we talk about display, and which are the right audience solutions that will satisfy your micro or macro conversions objectives. So keep tuned for next time, and please do not forget to fill in the survey today. Really, really important. So let's see if there are any questions today. Yes, we have one from Callum. When using in-market audiences, should you target a specific audience or a broad audience with specific keywords?
So I think we may be a bit either confusing or bringing two targetings into one place. So when you're using in-market audience, you should just be using in-market audiences. And it's a standardized list of categories. You've selected that. You're not bringing any keywords targeting into it, and I wouldn't actually recommend to mix it with keywords, just because then you really don't know what worked well, what didn't, you know. So test your keywords in a separate ad group or campaign, it's fine. But like in market audience, don't mix it with anything, just use it on its own.
Yeah, so again, main takeaway, separate your way of targeting in the ad groups and in your campaign, so don't mix.
Perhaps, Calum, just go back to the slide where we said that what is the two things to do to be successful within market audiences, of which one was select the one that's really, really kind of representative of your product, right? So if you have that, just go for it, don't mix it with keywords. If you don't have it, think of a message to this audience, or perhaps pick a different targeting or create a custom affinity. So.
And Martin is asking, what's the best way to measure the impact that display advertising to new audiences has on direct and organic traffic to your site?
So I'm hoping that some of it may be touched in the next section. But the thing is, if you want to absolutely run a statistical analysis to see the incremental impact, that can only be done on large volumes, I'd say. So we do have that type of testing, but it wouldn't be available for all advertisers because the investments to it would be really large. And there is a dedicated team who would have to run that analysis, a team of statisticians, right? So if you want to see the cross impact of different channels, at the moment, there is no easy way to actually see it right now. I think what usually advertisers do is having the right strategy, they go into advertising across different channels anyway. And what they do is compare how search behaved, say, the year before they had a full-fledged display strategy. There's actually a good example on the internet of the $1 Shave Club, because what $1 Shave Club did, they launched this very strong brand video on YouTube, actually. And then what we analyzed is we looked at their organic brand terms growth on search. So how that compared to Gillette as well. So what we saw then is that if you were to just input $1 Shave Club and Gillette and compare how the graphs of searches went. So before $1 Shave Club launched their video, they were somewhere at the bottom, far away from Gillette, because Gillette is a well-known brand. And then after they had launched this video, they actually came on par with Gillette, and they were growing, while Gillette was stable because it was already a well-known brand and they weren't growing that much. But these guys were actually growing. So sort of post-factum, if you have a large enough volume of audience that you brought with the display strategy, you could see that through even something like insights on Google Trends, if what you're selling is popular enough. Otherwise, just look at the assist ratios, look at the view-through conversions, and that at the moment is the one thing that you can do to see that impact.
How many keywords per ad group would you recommend? So I guess this is about contextual targeting, so we're not...
All right. So the only thing is audience keywords is when you would be creating an audience based on your keywords. This is actually, funny enough, equivalent to custom affinity audience. So if you're creating a custom affinity audience based on keywords, it's very similar to if you just created an ad group targeting display with keywords and selected the setting of audience keywords. Anyways, a bit of a complicated answer from the start, but I would say at least 5. And also make them not with the dual meaning. Like, don't just input the word shoes, because shoes can mean dressy shoes, running shoes, women's shoes, men's shoes. But pick 5 keywords that would narrow, give the right signals, right enough signals for us to understand what you actually mean. So running shoes for marathons, that already says a bit more. And have at least 5 of those, I'd say.
Next question, really interesting one. Would you recommend using auto-targeting on remarketing campaigns? So we were actually discussing about this just before this live stream. So yes and no, it depends. So if the objective of your remarketing campaign is really to look after, which is like the natural objective of a remarketing campaign, those users that have been on your website and just go after conversion of a precise bunch of users, we would say maybe no, is not the best strategy. If you're using, for example, I don't know, if you are remarketing on a website that is selling, I don't know, holidays in Tokyo, for example, and you're using a conservative targeting for a remarketing campaign, that could expand to people looking for holidays in Japan, for example. Mm-hmm. When it comes to expanding with an aggressive targeting, you could reach for people looking for a holiday in Asia as well. So we are going broader and broader.
Expansion, right.
It's an expansion. So again, remarketing is not made to expand, at least like is not the main objective. So be careful, maybe try to discuss this with your clients as well.
Right, so the absolute rule of thumb here is the following. If you are not worried much, if your remarketing list will be mixed with a few new people, as long as we're bringing better performance, opt into auto-targeting, because in reality, it can bring up to 20, 30, and even up to 50% more conversions if you're using aggressive targeting with remarketing. But you know that then it's mixing a bit of new audience into their existing remarketing audience. Plus side, better performance in terms of conversions, like even stronger performance. Downside is that you're mixing the audiences. If you really worry about mixing the audiences because you have a very special promotion to say that specific people who are going to Tokyo and you, like Japan would be already a bit irrelevant, then don't do auto-targeting because it will expand to the new audience and you don't really know who, what exactly they're like.
Yeah, that's really important because again, auto-targeting is focused on conversion. So the performances of the campaign will be good, I would say, even when you're using auto-targeting with remarketing, but it all depends on which is the objective that you want to go for in that single campaign. Mm-hmm. So yes or no really depends on your objective. Mm-hmm. Last question, we have 30 seconds. Can you define large volumes?
That really depends. If you're thinking of that incrementality test, then that's something that I won't answer on the Hangout, discuss it with the account manager, but that is probably millions of impressions per day, I'd say, to get statistically significant. But otherwise, just give display time, because you will see that as it's ramping up, you will see sporadic conversions here and there, maybe last click conversions. But even if you give it 2 weeks, 1 month, you'll see that your assist ratio is becoming stronger because it's starting to influence other channels. And the more time you give it, the more volume of data there is, the more you will see those ratios grow. So, for example, to me, a rule of thumb of whether there is enough of volume on display or not is if your assist ratio on display is kind of less than 1 or around 1, you're probably not kind of expanding enough or not to the right audience, because usually it assists more strongly than any search channel or organic channel. So it should be sort of above 1 and even higher. And the clients that I have who I've worked with, who have, so to say, large volumes, will have an assist ratio of even 30 and higher, right? So this is a bit of a cross-reference.
It has to be discussed maybe on individual basis.
It's just very individual, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here. So thanks again, thank you, Anna, for sharing such a precious knowledge. Hope you enjoyed this session. Don't forget to fill in the survey, and I'll see you next week, next Thursday. Bye. Bye. Thank you.